I thought that was a spider. Oh my gosh. Hi guys, welcome back to my channel, and this is part 2 of the history of my home. Let's go. Okay, so we left off trying to figure out who was Lee Jeffries. Lee Jeffries was born in 1901 in New York, and he was the son of Robert Darrell Jeffries and Anne Havmeyer. I'm not sure how I need to pronounce it, but I say Havmeyer. And Anne was the daughter and the heiress to the Domino sugar fortune. The story that I have been told from just word of mouth was that she had passed away shortly after he was born, but I did a little bit of digging, and it looks like everything that I see that she had passed away in 1951. So that's quite a long time after Lee was born. There are 2 different stories. I don't know what one is true. If you want to kind of do like a speculation video, please let me know down in the comments, and I would love to, because I definitely traced the Havmeyer family line back to like the 1700s, and she's the only Anne, so it has to be her, but I don't know if she was maybe living 2 lives, if it was the same one, and maybe it's just mixed up online. I'm not sure. But if you want to see a video on that, please just let me know. So Lee married Janet. Janet, her family was very well off, and they were more upstate, and Lee was down in Manhattan, obviously living his life in Manhattan. And her family had owned a bunch of hotels. Well, they had fallen in love and gotten married, and she wanted to stay near her family. So he said, cool, we do have a bunch of mansions in New York City, but we can move to upstate, I guess. So after they had gotten married, they went to Europe for 2 years. And I kind of touched on this in the other video, but they went to Europe for 2 years. He studied art while he was there. They had a couple children, and they ended up coming back. And when they came back, that is when they started the construction on the home. I had gone through kind of that part of it in part 1. If you wanted to go reference that, you can. And it's just like a quick little story of that. So Lee and Janet both had, obviously, they both had 5 children. A couple of them, at least one of them was born in Paris, and his name was Richard Darrell Jeffries. So I'm assuming, he had taken his father's maiden name as his middle name. And then there was a William, there was a John, another Anne, and then a Mary. A couple of the kids, like I said, were born in Paris, actually. At least one of the children were born in Paris. And then when they came back here and they started the construction on the home, they decided that they were going to get local stone from a local quarry here to start building this magnificent house that you see. So there were a couple articles written in the 20s about the home being built because it was so massive, and it was a $200,000 house. Now in the 1920s, if you do the conversion, it's over $4 million that this house was built for. So Lee Jeffries spent over $4 million building this home in the 1920s. And at the end of that, they were welcoming their 4th child when they finally were able to move into the home, and he put the home in her name. So he put the deed into her name. Now, if you know anything about history, putting a woman's name on a deed in 1920s was like insane. That was not a normal thing to do, but he did. Another detail that I did want to add here, I know it's a little side note, but from the article that I had found, 100,000 tons of stone were moved from Holland Patent quarries to this area to be able to build the house. Crazy. Lee Jeffries also owned a home in Barneveld, New York. He had multiple homes. That was a vacation home for him. Again, you have to think these people were the richest of the rich people at the time, and he had multiple homes throughout New York State. The Jeffries family lived here from the construction when it was finished in the 1920s until about the 1940s. They had lived here and they traveled from their summer homes and everything else until, unfortunately, tragedy struck the family. I believe it was their oldest child, Richard Darrell Jeffries, had passed away. From everything that I've read and everyone that I have spoken to, including the previous owners that spoke with the original family before the only living relative had passed, was that he had gone to sleep, and then when the servants went in to check on him the next morning, unfortunately, he was gone, and nobody really knows why. Obviously, back in the 1920s, there were so many things that could have been wrong that did not catch. He could have had, something wrong with his heart or something like that, but there was no more information from that I found. Now, something about Lee Jeffries is, I had stated before, he is an artist. So the room that I'm sitting in right now was his artist studio / office. Now, there is an office that is attached to this room underneath me, and that is where Brian's actually streaming to you guys right this second. But he made sure that he had sections of the home that were for him and his art, because he really enjoyed art that much. When I tried to find more information about Janet, unfortunately, I couldn't find much. It was kind of a dead end. I will not lie. I did really focus on the Jeffries family when I was researching a lot of these things. I did find her gravesite, and I found her son who had passed gravesite. The family further on in their lives, they did move away, and a lot of them are in different parts of the country. And I know that, I believe it was the grandchildren, they had actually come a few years ago and stayed in this home for a weekend or something like that. I don't know the exact details, but I remember at the final walkthrough, the caretakers of the home that had spoken with them said that they contacted them and asked to come see the home, because obviously it was a magnificent family home. So shortly after her son had passed, Lee and Janet unfortunately split up. I can't imagine the heartbreak or what had gone on, but they had split their ways, and Janet unfortunately passed in 1949, and then Lee was remarried to Shirley Gladys Gale, or Gladys Gale, I'm not quite sure, but Shirley Gale. And Lee Jeffries lived up until 1985, and he also had moved away. So none of these people stayed in New York. I may be wrong, but I think that Lee actually had passed in Vermont, or he had gone to Vermont for a very long time. Again, it's very hard to try and get exact details of like where they were and why they were there, especially when their direct descendants are no longer with us. In May of 1945, Victor Conti, Serafino J. Graziano, and Joseph Peters wanted to buy the house, and they bought it for approximately $27,000 and also a $10,000 cash deposit. She did sell it to them, and on that she put in the deed that basically the home could not be separated. She had great pride in the home, understandably so. She had very much pride in this home, and I'm assuming it was a heartbreak to sell, but also I understand why she may have wanted to sell with losing her child in the home. That is a very sad and horrible situation. I couldn't even imagine. But she did sell it to them, and she did put in the deed this clause: no structures other than the single residences for one family except garages, and not more than 8 single residences in addition to the 2 residences already added. And no residence shall be erected on said property at the cost of less than $10,000 each. They had said in this article, this suggests that her desire to have the exclusive status of the property maintained and her pride in owning this property. Again, which I had stated before, she had immense pride in this property, and I'm sure it was very gut-wrenching for her to leave. Another cool fact about this house and Lee itself is that Lee has an original painting still in this home to this day. I don't know how it survived throughout the crazy history of this house, but it did. And it is a painting of Adam and Eve. And if I can insert it here, I will. I don't know if YouTube will let me, because it is Adam and Eve and they don't have clothes on, but I will try. If I have to blur something out, I will. And it's amazing. It's beautiful. If there's some way that I can protect it, I will. I know that the previous caretakers of the house asked me at the final walkthrough, and they said, "You're not going to paint over this, will you?" And I was like, never in a million years. I'm going to try and keep it preserved as much as possible, honestly. And another thing is that Lee did actually have a piece of art that came for sale, I believe in 2017, and it did sell, and I will be on the lookout for more original art pieces from Lee Jeffries. I think that would be amazing to try and find that and put this in this home. It's just kind of like a little legacy that he can leave behind here. So that wraps up the Jeffries family history part of this home. I also do have an original photo of the family in this home. I will insert it here if I can. And if you stayed to the end of the video, then you got a little treat to see that and also his original painting. The next video will be about the next family that took over this home. I hope you guys are really enjoying these videos. I love history, but my brain also goes a million miles a minute. So sometimes I skip around or miss some things, but that is the basic overview that I wanted to go over for now. I hope you guys will join me in the next one. I love you guys and I will see you guys later. Bye.